All right, welcome to part 25 of my overview of the Bible story. We are in the period of the exile. Okay, so the northern kingdom got taken up here by the Assyrian Empire. Do you know where Kurdistan is today? It's kind of up here, somewhere around where Kurdistan is today. And the kingdom of Judah got taken over to Babylon by King Nebuchadnezzar. Okay, now I just want to read you the first few verses in Psalm 137. Okay, it says this: "Beside the rivers of Babylon, we sat and wept as we thought of Jerusalem. We put away our harps, hanging them on the branches of poplar trees, for our captors demanded a song from us. Our tormentors insisted on a joyful hymn. Sing us one of those songs of Zion." But how can we sing the songs of the Lord while in a pagan land? Oh, if I forget you, O Jerusalem, let my right hand forget how to play the harp. May my tongue stick to the roof of my mouth if I fail to remember you, if I don't make Jerusalem my highest joy. Okay? Well, this is what they're saying. We are not going to forget Zion, Jerusalem. We're not going to do it. How can we sing a song, cheerful song in a pagan land? Okay, now one of the most important people in the story at this time of the exile is named Daniel. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about this story. Now, Daniel was just a teenager when he got taken from Jerusalem by King Nebuchadnezzar's army, taken prisoner way over to Babylon. Can you imagine being like a teenager and suddenly you're like a prisoner being taken way over to another city, and then you grow up there, you spend your whole adult life over there? Man, it'd be kind of crazy. Now, Daniel is just an amazing man. So far in the story, right, most of the people have made pretty big mistakes, right? Abraham made mistakes, Moses made mistakes, David made mistakes, everybody's made mistakes. But Daniel, in the story, it doesn't say that he made any mistakes. Okay, that doesn't mean he was perfect. He was a sinner, just like you and me. But the story doesn't record that he made mistakes. Now, later we'll take a look at one of his prayers, and he says he's confessing his sins. So we know he's a sinner. He's not perfect. But the story, I mean, he's so faithful. You'll see in the story, he's really faithful to God. Okay, so he gets taken off as a prisoner. Okay, it says this: "Then King Nebuchadnezzar ordered Ashpenaz, his chief of staff, to bring to the palace some of the young men of Judah's royal family." Okay, so we know Daniel was one of the young men of Judah's royal family. And he would have lived in Jerusalem, right? And other noble families who had been brought to Babylon as captives. "Select only strong, healthy, and good-looking young men," he said. "Make sure they are well-versed in every branch of learning, are gifted with knowledge and good judgment, and are suited to serve in the royal palace. Train these young men in the language and literature of Babylon." Okay, so these guys, some young men, they're going to go through a period of training, and then they're going to serve in King Nebuchadnezzar's palace. Okay, so Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah were four of the young men chosen, all from the tribe of Judah. The chief of staff renamed them with these Babylonian names. Daniel was called Belteshazzar, Hananiah was called Shadrach, Mishael was called Meshach, and Azariah was called Abednego. So they give them Babylonian names. Okay, then the training period ordered by the king was completed. The chief of staff brought when this period of training was done, it was 3 years, okay? When it was done, the chief of staff brought all the young men to King Nebuchadnezzar. The king talked with them, and no one impressed him as much as Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. So they entered the royal service. Whenever the king consulted them in any matter requiring wisdom and balanced judgment, he found them 10 times more capable than any of the magicians and enchanters in his entire kingdom. Whoa, so the king really likes these guys. They're great. Okay, now King Nebuchadnezzar has dreams. Interesting dreams. And now remember, there was another ruler in this story who had dreams. Do you remember that? It was Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And what happened? God gave Joseph, who was a prisoner, gave Joseph the ability to interpret dreams. And he interpreted Pharaoh's dream. And then what happened? Joseph was elevated right to the top of the kingdom of Egypt. We're going to see that pattern repeating here. God gives Daniel a special ability to understand dreams. He's going to interpret King Nebuchadnezzar's dream and rise to the top. Okay, now King Nebuchadnezzar has one really actually he has a bunch of interesting dreams in the book of Daniel. You can read it. It only takes about maybe half an hour or maybe 40 minutes to read the whole book of Daniel in the Bible. Okay, but I just want to talk about one of his dreams here. It's the first dream in the book. It's very interesting. Okay, so he has this dream, but he doesn't know what it means. Okay, so he calls together, his magicians and astrologers and sorcerers and all those people who are supposed to understand this kind of stuff, because he wants his dream to be interpreted. He wants to know what this dream means. So he brings them all in, and he says, this is what we're going to do, guys. I want to know the meaning of my dream, but I don't trust you guys to tell me the truth. So first, you need to tell me what my dream was. If you can tell me what my dream was, then I'll trust your interpretation. And so these guys say, we can interpret it if you tell it to us, but if you don't tell it to us, we have no idea. So how are we supposed to know what your dream was? And so they can't do it. And the king gets just really angry at them. He says, okay, you're all dead. I'm going to kill all of these wise men in Babylon. And remember, Daniel and his friends were among this group called the wise men. I mean, they weren't the astrologers and the sorcerers and all this bad stuff, because God had, in the Torah, God had forbidden that kind of stuff. Astrology, trying to predict the future by looking at stuff. God had forbidden that. So these guys didn't do that. But Daniel and his friends were kind of part of this whole group called wise men. Okay, so Nebuchadnezzar orders his commander to go and kill all of them. Done. You guys are all dead. His name is Arioch. Okay, the commander. When Arioch, the commander of the king's guard, came to kill them, Daniel handled the situation with wisdom and discretion. He asked Arioch, why has the king issued such a harsh decree? So Arioch told him all that had happened. Daniel went at once to see the king and requested more time to tell the king what the dream meant. Okay, so then Daniel went home and told his friends Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah what had happened. He urged them to ask the God of heaven to show them his mercy by telling them the secret, so they would not be executed along with the other wise men of Babylon. That night the secret was revealed to Daniel in a vision. Then Daniel praised the God of heaven. Praise the name of God forever and ever, for he has all wisdom and power. He controls the course of world events. He removes kings and sets up other kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to the scholars. He reveals deep and mysterious things and knows what lies hidden in darkness, though he is surrounded by light. I thank and praise you, God of my ancestors, for you have given me wisdom and strength. You have told me what we asked of you and revealed to us what the king demanded. All right. So God gave them he gave them the interpretation of this dream. Well, what the dream was and the interpretation. Remember, because they needed both of those pieces. So then Daniel went to see Arioch, whom the king had ordered to execute the wise men of Babylon. Daniel said to him, "Don't kill the wise men. Take me to the king, and I will tell him the meaning of his dream." Arioch quickly took Daniel to the king and said, "I have found one of the captives from Judah who will tell the king the meaning of his dream." The king said to Daniel, also known as Belteshazzar, "Is this true? Can you tell me what my dream was and what it means?" Daniel replied, "There are no wise men, enchanters, magicians, or fortune tellers who can reveal the king's secret. But there is a God in heaven who reveals secrets, and he has shown King Nebuchadnezzar what will happen in the future. Now I will tell you your dream and the visions you saw as you lay on your bed." Okay, now he's going to tell the king what his dream was. "While your majesty was sleeping, you dreamed about coming events. He who reveals secrets has shown you what's going to happen. And it's not because I am wiser than anyone else that I know the secret of your dream, but because God wants you to understand what was in your heart." Okay, this is interesting. "In your vision, your majesty, you saw standing before you a huge shining statue of a man. It was a frightening sight. The head of the statue was made of fine gold. Its chest and arms were silver. Its belly and thighs were bronze. Its legs were iron, and its feet were a combination of iron and baked clay. As you watched, a rock was cut out from a mountain, but not by human hands. It struck the feet of iron and clay, smashing them to bits. The whole statue was crushed into small pieces of iron, clay, bronze, and silver and gold. Then the wind blew them away without a trace, like chaff on a threshing floor." Remember we talked about a threshing floor? All right, that's where you process your grain, like wheat or barley. Maybe you throw it up in the air and let the wind take the chaff away, and then the good grain, falls down to the ground. Okay, so so the wind blew all the little pieces of the statue away. But the rock that knocked the statue down became a great mountain that covered the whole earth. Wow, interesting. Okay, so this is a statue. He sees a massive statue. Okay, maybe it looked something like this, okay, with a head of gold, chest and arms of silver, belly and thighs of bronze, legs of iron, and feet of part iron and part clay. So it's going from strongest down to weakest here, okay? So, and then a rock that's cut out from a mountain, not by human hands, smashes the idol on the feet, and then the whole statue is, I don't know if it's an idol or what it is, a statue. This whole statue comes crashing down and is blown away like chaff. But this rock becomes a huge mountain that covers the whole world. Weird. That as I need a little bit of water here. Sorry about that. Doing too much talking. Okay. That was the dream. Now we will tell the king what it means. Your Majesty, you are the greatest of kings. The God of heaven has given you sovereignty, power, strength, and honor. He has made you the ruler over all the inhabited world and has put even the wild animals and birds under your control. You are the head of gold. Wow, King Nebuchadnezzar is the head of gold. But after your kingdom comes to an end, another kingdom inferior to yours will arise to take your place. After that kingdom has fallen, yet a third kingdom, represented by bronze, will rise to rule the world. Following that kingdom, there will be a fourth one, as strong as iron. That kingdom will smash and crush all previous empires, just as iron smashes and crushes everything it strikes. The feet and toes you saw were a combination of iron and baked clay, showing that this kingdom will be divided. Like iron mixed with clay, it will have some of the strength of iron. It will have some of the strength of iron, but while some parts of it will be as strong as iron, other parts will be as weak as clay. This mixture of iron and clay also shows that these kingdoms will try to strengthen themselves by forming alliances with each other through intermarriage. But they will not hold together, just as iron and clay do not mix. Interesting. Okay, so now he's interpreting the statue, right? It's going to be the first king, like Nebuchadnezzar's the king, the head of gold, and then after his kingdom, there's going to be a weaker kingdom, represented by the chest and arms of silver, and then after that kingdom, there's going to be the ones of bronze. After that is the iron, and then so this is going to be the future of the world here we're talking about. And then what's the last one? During the reigns of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that will never be destroyed or conquered. Whoa. It will crush all these kingdoms into nothingness, and it will stand forever. That is the meaning of the rock cut out from the mountain, though not by human hands, that crushed to pieces the statue of iron, bronze, clay, silver, and gold. The great God was showing the king what will happen in the future. The dream is true and its meaning is certain. Isn't that mysterious? Man, its dream is true. What's King Nebuchadnezzar going to do? Then King Nebuchadnezzar threw himself down before Daniel and worshipped him. And he commanded his people to offer sacrifices and burn sweet incense before him. The king said to Daniel, "Truly your God is the greatest of gods, the Lord over kings, a revealer of mysteries, for you have been able to reveal this secret." Then the king appointed Daniel to a high position and gave him many valuable gifts. He made Daniel ruler over the whole province of Babylon, as well as chief over all his wise men. At Daniel's request, the king appointed Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to be in charge of all the affairs of the province of Babylon, while Daniel remained in the king's court. Okay, so Daniel is in the king's palace, I guess, and his three friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they're doing, the work out in the provinces or whatever it is, okay? Okay. Now, I'm just giving a little overview of the book of Daniel here. We're not going to cover every story, but I want to talk about what happens next. King Nebuchadnezzar is not that humble. He's a proud guy. Maybe he thought, I'm the head of gold. I'm the best. Well, anyway, he builds a massive statue of gold. Massive, 90 feet tall, which is, that's about 30 meters? 30 meters tall, man. Okay, and he calls all his governors, like all the people in his government, he calls them all together. Says, "Hey guys, you need to show your loyalty to me by bowing down to this statue." Okay, so everybody bow down to this statue and worship this golden statue. So everybody bows down, Oh yeah, we like you, King Nebuchadnezzar. We're loyal to you. But there were three men who didn't bow down. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They didn't bow down to the statue. Now, where was Daniel here? I don't know. He's probably back in the palace. He was there probably. So he's not mentioned in the story. But these three guys are, okay? So these three guys don't bow down. And the people, go and tell King Nebuchadnezzar, hey, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego aren't bowing down to your statue. So King Nebuchadnezzar calls them in and says, hey, what's this? What's going on? You need to bow down to my statue and worship it. Okay. So then what do they say? Then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied, O Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, okay, King Nebuchadnezzar had said, if anybody doesn't bow down to worship this statue, I'm going to throw you into a big furnace of fire. And you're going to get burned alive, burned to death. Okay, if we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God whom we serve is able to save us. He will rescue us from your power, your majesty. But even if he doesn't, we want to make it clear to you, your majesty, that we will never serve your gods or worship the gold statue you have set up. Whoa, those are strong words to a proud king. Hey, your majesty, we want to make it clear to you, we will never do it. Okay, well, then Nebuchadnezzar was furious with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and his attitude toward them changed. Remember, he liked them a lot before. They were great, better, 10 times better than anybody else, all the other people in his his wise men and magicians and astrologers. He liked them a lot, but his attitude changed toward them. He ordered the furnace heated 7 times hotter than usual, and commanded some of the strongest soldiers in his army to tie up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and throw them into the blazing furnace. So these men, wearing their robes, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, right, they're wearing their clothes and stuff like that. Wearing their clothes were bound, they're tied up, and thrown into the blazing furnace. The king's command was so urgent, okay, that and the furnace was so hot that the flames of fire killed the soldiers who took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these 3 men, firmly tied, fell into the blazing furnace. All right, so it might have looked something like this, okay? So they got the strong, commanders or strong bodyguard people. They tied up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and they took them up here, probably, right? And they threw them in through here. Now, there was probably some sort of a window here where King Nebuchadnezzar could look in and watch them burn. I guess that's what people enjoy doing back in those days. So the soldiers take them up here and whatever, and this fire is so hot that these strong, soldiers or whatever, they died, and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego fell into the fire. Guys, man, what do you think is going to happen here? Well, then Nebuchadnezzar is looking into the fire, and he says, wait a minute, guys. Didn't we put 3 men into the fire? And the guys say, yeah, we put 3 guys in there. Nebuchadnezzar says, well, I see 4 men in the fire walking around. And the 4th man looks like the son of the gods. He's just shocked. He's seeing Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and this mysterious 4th man with them in the fire, walking around. They're not dying. They're not being burned. Then Nebuchadnezzar then approached the opening of the blazing furnace and shouted, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out, come here. Then everybody gathered around them. They're looking at them. Nothing was burned. Their clothes weren't burned. They didn't even smell like smoke. What? Then Nebuchadnezzar said, Praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and rescued his servants. They trusted in him and defied the king's command and were willing to give up their lives rather than serve or worship any god except their own God. Therefore, I decree that the people of any nation or language who say anything against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be cut into pieces and their houses be turned into piles of rubble. For no other God can save in this way. Incredible. Oh man. So we see in this story that God is miraculously protecting his people in exile. Okay? Yeah, the people are really sad. They're away from their city of Jerusalem, but God is still with them. Okay, God hasn't forgotten about them. All right, so now I want to talk about some of Daniel's visions. Okay, Daniel not only has the ability to interpret dreams, but God gives him visions that he doesn't even really understand himself. I just want to take a look at one thing he says in Daniel chapter 7. Okay, it's very interesting. It says, "In my vision at night I looked, and there before me was one like a son of man, coming with the clouds of heaven. He approached the Ancient of Days and was led into his presence." Okay, the Ancient of Days is another name for God. Okay, this is describing Yahweh, Ancient of Days. Yeah, when he was led into his presence, he was given authority, glory, and sovereign power. All nations and peoples of every language worshipped him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion that will not pass away, and his kingdom is one that will never be destroyed. Whoa, okay, so this Son of Man, just understand this. There's a Son of Man, okay? Daniel's seeing this vision. God is showing Daniel this vision. So it's God who's showing him this. In this vision, there's one like a Son of Man, okay, coming before Yahweh. And it was led into his presence. He was given authority, glory, and sovereign power. All nations and peoples of every language worshipped him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion that will not pass away, and his kingdom is one that will never be destroyed. Do you know what this sounds a lot like? Remember the prophecy about Judah? Remember, a king is going to come from Judah, and he's going to be reign forever, and the nations are going to obey him? This sounds a lot like that. Wow, his kingdom will never be destroyed. Well, this sounds a lot like the rock that was cut out from the mountain, not with human hands. It smashed the statue on the feet, and the whole statue collapsed and was blown away by the wind. And then this rock became a huge mountain that covered the whole earth. This sounds like that. So this Son of Man is the rock in King Nebuchadnezzar's dream. Now, what's going on here? This Son of Man is being worshipped. The whole world is worshiping this Son of Man. Well, do you remember the 10 Commandments? What was the first commandment? Do not worship any other gods. So what's going on here? There's one God. There's only one God. So why is the Son of Man getting worshipped? And Yahweh is okay with it? Isn't Yahweh jealous? What's going on? Well, in Deuteronomy, remember the book of Deuteronomy, we talked about that. It says this: "Hear, O Israel, Yahweh our God, Yahweh is one." Okay? Yahweh is one. Not 2 or 3. So what's going on here? What does this mean that Yahweh is one? You know what this reminds me of? Remember what Yahweh said in Psalm 2? You remember that? What was Yahweh's idea? All the nations were raging against Yahweh and against Yahweh's Messiah. Okay. And they're like, we're going to reject your authority. We're going to free ourselves from all your, from under your, we don't want any of your chains. We're going to be our own leaders. We're going to rule the world ourselves. What was Yahweh's idea? Yahweh scoffed at them. He laughed and scoffed at them. And he said, as for me, my idea is that I have set my king on Zion, my holy hill. His king? Who's his king? And then we find out later in the psalm, the second half of the psalm, that king is his son. The Son of God, the Son of Man. So in Daniel's vision in Daniel chapter 7, the Son of Man who's approaching God on the clouds of heaven and is given authority and dominion over the whole world, and all the people of every language, they all worship that king. Son of Man, Son of God. This is a bit of a mystery here, okay? Wow. Remember also that mystery in Psalm 110 where David said, Yahweh said to my master. How can we kind of have this mystery of David's son becoming his master? How can David's son be his master? Kind of have that mystery. So I don't know, guys, it's very interesting. We're at this point in the story, we're just kind of like, we need to kind of think about this. What does it mean that Yahweh is one? Okay, so I just want to talk a bit about Daniel. He prays this amazing prayer in Daniel chapter 9. Okay, I just want to take a look at that. Okay, he says, O Lord, you are great and awesome God. You always fulfill your covenant and keep your promises of unfailing love to those who love you and obey your commands. But we have sinned and done wrong. We have rebelled against you and scorned your commands and regulations. We have refused to listen to your servants, the prophets, who spoke on your authority, to our kings and princes and ancestors, and to all the peoples of the land. Okay, so now Daniel in his prayer, he's kind of acknowledging what happened. He's going to go back and look at the story, what happened. So Daniel keeps praying and he says, Lord, you are in the right, but as you see, our faces are covered with shame. This is true of all of us, including the people of Judah and Jerusalem and all Israel, scattered near and far, wherever you have driven us, because of our disloyalty to you. Okay, so Daniel's saying, look, he's talking about all of his people, Judah, Israel, scattered way over there, we're down here, all God's people scattered. You remember, they're all Israelites, they're all one people who God brought out of Egypt. Right now, our disloyalty to you, you've sent us out into exile because of our disloyalty to you. O Lord, we and our kings, princes, and ancestors are covered with shame because we have sinned against you. But the Lord our God is merciful and forgiving. Even though we have rebelled against him, we have not obeyed the Lord our God. Sorry, I read that wrong. God is merciful and forgiving, even though we have rebelled against him. We have not obeyed the Lord our God, for we have not followed the instructions he gave us through his servants the prophets. All Israel has disobeyed your instruction and turned away, refusing to listen to your voice. Man, that's exactly what happened, right? He's telling he's telling the truth of what happened here. Now look what he says. So now the solemn curses and judgments written in the law of Moses, he knew the law of Moses, okay, the servant of God. All these curses, right, written in the law of Moses have been poured down on us because of our sin. You have kept your word and done to us and our rulers exactly as you warned. Never has there been such a disaster as happened in Jerusalem. Every curse written against us in the law of Moses has come true. Yet we have refused to seek mercy from the Lord our God by turning from our sins and recognizing his truth. Therefore, the Lord has brought upon us the disaster he prepared. The Lord our God was right to do all these things, for we did not obey him." Man, isn't that incredible? Daniel saying, "Lord, you're right. You warned us about this, and you said if we do all this bad stuff, if we forget about you and worship all idols, and we're disloyal to you, you're going to do this, and you did it. You're right. God, you're right. I confess to you, you're right." Now what's Daniel going to say? "Now, Lord our God, who brought your people out of Egypt with a mighty hand, who made for yourself a name that endures to this day, we have sinned, we have done wrong. Lord, in keeping with all your righteous acts, turn away your anger and your wrath from Jerusalem, your city, your holy hill. Our sins and the iniquities of our ancestors have made Jerusalem and your people an object of scorn to all those around us. Man, now our God, hear the prayers and petitions of your servant. For your sake, Lord, look with favor on your desolate sanctuary." Okay, sanctuary, means the temple. Okay, the temple, remember the temple was burned, plundered. They took away all the stuff, like all the nice stuff in the temple. They took it all away, and then they burned it. It's done. Okay, so look with favor on your desolate sanctuary. Give ear, our God, and hear. Open your eyes and see the desolation of the city that bears your name. We do not make requests of you because we are righteous, but because of your great mercy. Lord, listen. Lord, forgive. Lord, hear and act. For your sake, my God, do not delay, because your city and your people bear your name." He understands. He gets it. The city of Jerusalem, the people of God, the Israelites, they're carrying the name of God. Now the name of God is being shamed among all the nations, right? Guys, this is incredible. It shows that Daniel understood the story. He really understood why everything was happening this way. He understood the story very well. And that's really incredible. You remember the story of Gideon? Remember when God came to Gideon and said, "Hi, Gideon." What does he say? "I'm choosing you, Gideon. The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." And Gideon says, "What? Me? I'm just the lowest guy around here. I'm no one special." And then Gideon says to God, "Lord, if you are with us, then why has all this bad stuff happened? Why has all the bad stuff happened to us?" Okay, Gideon didn't know the story. It doesn't seem like he knew what happened. Remember in the period of Judges, the people always were forgetting God again and again and again and again. So there was a cycle happening over and over again. So what Gideon should have said was, he should have said what Daniel said. He should have said, "God," what's there, thumbs up there? Thank you guys for always smashing that thumbs up button. Gideon should have said, "God, I understand why bad stuff has happened to us. But because of your mercy, you love us so much, that's why you keep raising up heroes to save your people. And God, wow, you're choosing me, the lowest guy? That's incredible, right?" But Gideon, he asked God that it was kind of a dumb question, right? God, why has all this bad stuff happened if you're with us? Daniel didn't ask that because Daniel knew that God was right to do this. God had warned the people about this, right? Gideon, he could have known as well. Okay, Moses had long been dead by that time. The law, they had the books of Moses. Gideon should have known. He didn't. Daniel didn't know. So it's just incredible. Guys, and this is why I'm making this series. Okay, I want you to understand why things are happening a certain way in the world. Because people always say, oh, if God is real, then why are all these bad things happening in the world? Why is there all this evil and violence everywhere and stuff like that? Well, look, the reason people ask that question is because they don't know the story. Okay, if you know the story, you won't ask that question. I mean, it doesn't make this life any easier, right? I mean, when you're dealing with hardship, sometimes people ask why. Oh, why is this happening to me? Why do I have to face all this injustice in the world and everything like that? Yeah, it's hard. But in a way, it's easier when we understand the story, because we don't have to know where it's coming from. We know where it's coming from. We know why things are happening. But the beautiful thing about this story is that evil is destroyed forever. Okay? At the end, that rock, okay, that comes and smashes all the evil kingdoms of the world, and that rock becomes the mountain over the whole world, dominion, and all the world worships that Son of Man, the Son of God. Man, there's just going to be righteousness and peace and joy. There's not going to be it's not even going to be this much evil left in the world. That's the hope for the world. That's the future of the world. That's how this story ends. Okay, so it's really important to understand that we're not at the end of that story yet. We know why all the bad stuff has happened. It's not God's fault, right? So for someone like me, I say the same thing Daniel did. I say, God, you're right. You're right. The reason there's so much violence and evil in the world is because people have constantly rebelled against you. Lord, what's the main sin? What's the main problem? They take God's word and they cast it behind them. Say, I don't want to waste my time with the Bible. I don't want to waste my time learning about God's story. I want to go my own way. Okay, so I'm trying in this series as fast as I can, okay, to connect you to this story. All right, so thank you guys for your patience. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate this, that you're taking the time to do that. Really, I'm very thankful to you. Okay, so I just want to read you what God said to Jeremiah, who was alive in this period as well. Jeremiah chapter 9, it says this. God is saying, wise people should not be proud of their wisdom. Powerful people should not be proud of their power, and rich people should not be proud that they're rich. If they want to be proud about something, they should be proud that they know me. That they should boast that they understand who I am. I am the Lord. I am faithful in my love for my people. I always do what is right and fair. It makes me happy when people live in that way too. Okay? So God's saying, look, this is what I want. I want you to be proud that you know me and that you understand me, right? Understand my story. What's going on so far, right? I mean, is it possible to understand someone if you don't know anything about their story? No, like imagine your best friend or someone who understands you in life. The reason they understand you and they know you is because they know your story. They know where you're from. What happened? Maybe you lost your job here and you got another job and you went through a breakup or a divorce and then you married this person and then you got a new job and you moved to this place and that place. They know your story, right? So when you understand someone, you know their story. It's impossible to know someone and understand them unless you know their story. Well, God wants people to understand him and know him. And Daniel clearly understood God. It's just amazing. So that's actually that's the reason I love Daniel so much. Not because Daniel has great power to understand dreams and visions. I love Daniel because he gets this. He understands this story. And we're still in the story right now, but we're getting to the end. That's why I want to get you connected to the story as quickly as possible. Okay? So that you can also understand God by understanding the story. Okay, so then Daniel says this in his prayer. He says, while I was speaking and praying, confessing my sin and the sins of my people. Okay, so he's also a sinner, just like me and you. He's confessing his sin and the sins of my people Israel, and making my request to the Lord my God for his holy hill. Oh, look at that. He's always thinking about God's holy hill. He's always focused on that. Where is that today? It's right here. This is God's holy hill. Okay? Now, we're about 2,500 years after Daniel. Can you imagine that? Daniel lived 2,500 years ago, and he was focused on this holy hill. He was just, he was always thinking about it. So we see in his prayer, he talks about this over and over again. I was thinking about the holy hill. I was focused on God's holy hill, and the temple is burned, destroyed. God, I know why this happened. It happened because of this, and this. Now, God, please have mercy. Daniel knew that the story of this hill was not over. And just like me today, I know 100%, and I may as well say it right now, I believe very strongly that in the next little time, maybe a year or 2 years, 3 years, we're going to see major things happen on this hill. So keep your eye, be like Daniel and be like me, and keep your eyes over here. Okay? This is a real recent picture. Okay? This isn't old time in Daniel. This is now. But this is that place. Okay? So God sends Gabriel. While Daniel is praying, God sends the angel Gabriel to Daniel to give him a mystery, a very mysterious thing, okay? So Gabriel tells Daniel this: 77s are decreed for your people and your holy city to finish transgression. Transgression means like rebellion, like sin, to finish it. Whoa, to finish all the wickedness? Remember, this was a wicked city. Remember all the bad stuff that's happened, all the evil kings and all the bad stuff that's happened in the city. The wicked Queen Athaliah, all the temple of Baal, and oh man, there's so much wicked stuff that's happened in the city. Remember the people burning their sons and daughters in the fire in the valley of Ben Hinnom. Okay, to finish transgression, 77s are decreed for your people and your holy city to finish transgression, to put an end to sin, to atone for wickedness, to bring in everlasting righteousness, to seal up vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy place. What's the most holy place? Well, that's the holy hill. That's where the temple is. It's Mount Zion. Okay, whoa, what's going on here? 77s are decreed for your people. This means that this story of Israel, the Israelites, it's going to come to an end. It's going to be fulfilled. Okay? God's plan for this group of people called the Israelites, it's going to be fulfilled. It's not going to fail, and it's not going to last forever. So 77s, what is this? This is a time period. Okay? 77s are decreed for your people. So God has said that this is going to come to an end here. And your city to finish transgression, to put an end to sin, and to atone for wickedness. Now that sounds a lot like a priest, right? A priest to make atonement for wickedness, to bring in everlasting righteousness. That sounds a bit more like a king. To seal up vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy place. What a mystery. What an incredible. Now, in the future on my channel here, I'm going to be talking a lot more about this because this is very interesting. Some things have been fulfilled and some haven't. Okay, so what does Gabriel say after this? Gabriel tells Daniel, Know and understand this. From the time the word goes out to restore and rebuild Jerusalem until the Messiah, the ruler, comes, there will be 7 sevens and 62 sevens. It will be rebuilt with streets and a trench, but in times of trouble. After the 62 sevens, the Messiah will be put to death, but not for himself. What? The Messiah will be put to death, but not for himself. Remember, we just talked about that mysterious passage in Isaiah chapter 53 about the suffering servant whose face was so messed up that people couldn't even recognize him, and he bore the sins of the people, the sins of the whole world. He paid for the sins of the world. God placed on him the iniquity, the sinfulness of all of us, me and you. That sounds a lot like this guy. The Messiah will be put to death, but not for himself, not for his own sins. He's going to be put to death for our sins. Wow. The people of the ruler who will come will destroy the city and the sanctuary. Whoa. The end will come like a flood. Wait, who is this ruler? The ruler will come and to destroy the city and the sanctuary. That sounds like a bad guy. The end will come like a flood. War will continue until the end, and desolations have been decreed. He, this bad guy, he will confirm a covenant with many for 1 7. In the middle of the 7, he will put an end to sacrifice and offering. At the temple, he will set up an abomination that causes desolation until the end that is decreed is poured out on him. What a mysterious passage. Like I said, I'll be making more videos about this in the future. Okay, and then Gabriel keeps talking. He says to Daniel, "At that time, Michael the archangel, who stands guard over your nation, will arise. Then there will be a time of anguish greater than any since nations first came into existence. But at that time, every one of your people whose name is written in the book will be rescued. Many of those whose bodies lie dead and buried will rise up, some to everlasting life and some to shame and everlasting disgrace." Whoa. "Those who are wise will shine as bright as the sky, and those who lead many to righteousness will shine like the stars forever. But you, Daniel, keep this prophecy a secret, seal up the book until the time of the end, when many will rush here and there, and knowledge will increase." Man, what an interesting passage. Many of those whose dead bodies, okay, they lie dead and buried, will rise up. We see a resurrection from the dead people rising up. Some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting disgrace. Those who are wise will understand this. Those who are not, what does it say? It doesn't say who is that, but let me keep reading, okay? "I heard what he said, but I did not understand what he meant." Daniel's saying, man, what does all this mean? "So I asked, how will all this finally end, my lord?" He's calling Gabriel, a respectful term, my master. "Master, my lord, how is all this going to end?" And Gabriel said, "Go now, Daniel, for what I have said is kept secret and sealed until the time of the end. Many will be purified, cleansed, and refined by these trials. But the wicked will continue in their wickedness, and none of them will understand. Only those who are wise will know what it means." Man, guys, so look, it's really important to be wise and try to understand this. Look, it says, but the wicked will continue in their wickedness. None of them will understand. This is very important for me and you to understand. We need to end our wickedness. We need to repent of our wickedness and turn to God for forgiveness. He will purify us. Look what it says. Many will be purified, cleansed, and refined. Are you cleansed and refined, my friends, today? I am. I am washed in the blood. Remember what it says in the Torah? You know, atonement is made by the blood. Okay, without blood being shed, there's no forgiveness of sins. Okay, so it's really important to understand this. We'll see this stuff kind of coming to fulfillment later in the story. Okay, so I don't want to talk too much about what's going to happen in the future. So stick around for that. Thank you guys very much. It's kind of a long video. Let's see how many. Yeah, it was a bit longer than usual. Thank you for all your support. Thank you for sticking with me. Love you so much. Hope you're doing great. And I'll see you over in the next episode of Mark's Bible Overview. Take care.